Hi guys, welcome to the series where I'm interviewing the Reconciliation Ambassadors. Tonight I've got Kerri with us. Kerri has been on the RAP committee for the last 3 years. So I just want to say hi to Kerri.
Hi. Has it really been 3 years?
It has been 3 years coming up.
Wow.
Yeah. It feels like it's a bit longer and it doesn't feel long enough, does it?
Exactly.
Yeah. So Kerri, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a proud DjaDja Wurrung and Bangerang Aboriginal person. I live in the Bendigo region and work for the Department of Education and Training. I have a huge passion for early childhood education, so that's how I got involved with this whole AGECS group.
So topic one. I'll just say it backwards, but 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So Kerri, what does Australia Day mean to you?
It's a really hard day. It's one of those days that as an Aboriginal person, I'd rather forget about. But the English side of me, feels really, I don't know, it's hard to explain. I'd rather I get off the socials. I don't want to interact with people. I think the minority side of me, being my Aboriginality, wants to have the biggest voice in it all. And I can't wait for it to change. For 150 something years, we as Aboriginal people have been asking for it as a day of mourning. And yet there's so much tradition around it since 1994. It's a really strange space to be in. Yeah.
Why is it contentious for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people?
Because of that day of mourning side of things. In, what was that, 1938, Aboriginal people started holding it as a day of mourning, which was exactly 150 years after the first fleet arrived. And yet we don't seem to get the recognition as Aboriginal people of what that day actually means to us. Prior to 1994, Aboriginal, non-Aboriginal people celebrated the 26th of January on the Saturday following that. Yet it seems to hold so much tradition since 1994. So it's hard to understand why people don't listen to us when we say we need you to actually understand where we are coming from, and that day is very confrontational.
What are ways in which early childhood educators could educate staff and kids about the true histories of First Nations people?
Be open and honest, not shy away from the day and what it actually means. Explain to children that some people may see it as Indian Day, some people may see it as Survival Day, whilst lots of non-Aboriginal people see it as Australia Day. Don't be afraid to see the different ways in which people acknowledge that day. One of the services that I work with, they put out a survey to all families and asked what are some of the celebrations you have, and one of the parents responded with, we acknowledge Invasion Day. And the staff member asked me, how do I handle that? And I said, you have the relationship with the parent. Ask her as the parent why and how we as a service can help in acknowledging that for that Aboriginal child.
So Kerri, what does reconciliation mean to you?
It's about, I see reconciliation more from a non-Aboriginal perspective, in that it's a hand reaching out, admitting that there were wrongs in the past, that we have a traumatic background as Aboriginal people, but there are allies out in the community who want to acknowledge our hurt and walk forward with us. So I see that reconciliation side coming more from the non-Aboriginal people, but they need to listen to us as Aboriginal people in that process.
I like that. Definitely.
Thank you.
How do you, or can you explain reconciliation to young kids?
teaching children about the word sorry, acknowledging that sorry is about someone getting hurt and taking responsibility for that hurt at times. Sorry is such a hard word to say when it comes to things. So that in itself is a huge process. But acknowledging that there are special days that we all celebrate together, Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people, and that Reconciliation Day or Reconciliation Week is about us all becoming friends and working towards it, towards a better future for all of us.
What activities can educators use in the classroom to demonstrate reconciliation?
There are so many books for early childhood as a resource, which is fantastic. So things like Sorry Day, Sorry Sorry. There are lots of, like, what was it? Antar had all the hands across the lawns in Canberra. So, decorating the hands using the Aboriginal colours and, having lots of stuff on display, sort of not so much being a tokenistic day, but maybe ramping up the activities that you're already doing that have an Aboriginal focus on, so that it's a little bit more visible than the regular stuff that you might already be doing. Inviting elders in to have a morning tea or something and listening to their stories, reaching out to community events that might be happening in your areas and things like that.
What's your dream of reconciliation for the future?
Never thought about it.
Right?
Never thought about it. It's just, yeah. I like it when non-Aboriginal people actually do the events and we as community can opt into those events instead of it being us driving it all the time. So, yeah, but never really actually thought about that, AJ. Thank you.
Okay. So topic 3 is understanding cultural perspectives. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Where are some places that early childhood educators could go to start educating themselves around Aboriginal history and the contemporary issues?
I could go on and on and on all day about all of this and where to find resources. Depends on where you're actually placed, AJ. There are always community organisations that you can reach out to listen to the stories. If it's a recognised Aboriginal area, then my go-to would be the traditional owner group of that area. We know that sometimes that's not always the place. So maybe reaching out to a local Aboriginal education group that might be in the area is always a good space to look. In Victoria, we have VAI, we have VACA, we have the Koori Heritage Trust in Melbourne. The Bunjalaka Centre in the Melbourne Museum is absolutely amazing. So just reaching out to see who is in community and if they have enough knowledge or the ability to share with people. So, yeah, lots of websites. Just make sure they're genuine and authentic websites.
Being Aboriginal doesn't mean you know everything about Aboriginal issues and right across the whole country. Where do you learn from?
Elders. I learn from my elders. Like, I'm a middle-aged woman and I still get pulled up by my elders if I'm not doing the right thing, which I love. How else am I going to learn? Yeah. And then I then share that knowledge. They are the knowledge keepers and they will let you know when you are ready for that knowledge. So they're not going to tell me if they don't think I'm ready. So,
what would be 2 things that every educator should know about working with First Nations families?
We are relationship-based people. Build those relationships. It doesn't matter how much cultural knowledge that family has or what they know of their background, but make an effort to build that relationship with them. And I guess the other thing for services is the visibility, making sure that your service has a large Aboriginal visibility It could be the flags out the front, posters on the walls, puzzles within the service, just that highlighting of your wanting to embed Aboriginal perspectives into the services.
Yeah, cool. Topic 4, overcoming barriers. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So Kerri, what do you believe are the major barriers early childhood educators incorporate? I get this question wrong all the time. It's too long. I need to reword the question. Okay, 5, 4, 3. I'm laughing already. Okay, ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So Kerri, what are some barriers that non-Indigenous educators might struggle with when trying to incorporate First Nations perspectives into curriculum?
One thing is that they don't want to seem tokenistic, so therefore they don't do it at all. Some don't know where to start and who the right person is to ask. Where I work, in the space that I work, I'm happy for people to start off being tokenistic, and then the next year they add a little bit more, they add a little bit more, they add a little bit more, and then it's moving away from that tokenism into the embedding of the perspectives and the cultural aspects of it. So I think there's a lot of confusion about Aboriginal perspectives versus Aboriginal culture and what they can teach and what they can't teach. And that gets really confusing. So people just say, look, I don't want to do it. A lot of people are scared that they might offend. So again, they don't want to step on toes. They don't want to get it wrong. They don't want to have elders coming in growling at them. So therefore they just don't do it. You are going to make mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes. You learn from those mistakes the way we do in any aspect of life.
Yeah. What are some barriers that early childhood educators might experience when they're working with Aboriginal kids in the room? Or to their
some of our families don't know their Aboriginal connection to either where they are or where they're from. And some of that can come down to people just didn't want to identify as being Aboriginal. The stolen generation has impacted that as well. So they're relying on those families to be that conduit to all of the Aboriginal connection that they have within services. And when families come to them and just say, look, I'm sorry, we don't know, they don't know what to do next. They don't know that next step. So that's where, people in my job, career engagement support officers, we come in handy. We're there to advise and steer people in the right direction. We are happy to give resources to help services start that process.
Yeah. What are some ways in which early childhood educators could start their journey in terms of trying to understand history and getting the barrier and looking at identifying what the barriers are and making changes?
Even just starting off, finding out where your service is built and who were the traditional owners. That in itself is a huge step, because then you're starting to put the puzzle pieces together. You can start doing that acknowledgement to country to the right people. And I know in some areas it gets really confusing because of the traditional owner groups. There might be 3 in a particular area. There could be more than that in some areas, and we understand that. It's about being respectful and making sure you're trying to do the right thing. The next thing is to try and reach out and see if there is any Aboriginal organisations in that area.
Yeah.
And just asking. And again, we are relationship-based people, so you may not get an answer straight away. Be persistent. Keep trying. Just because you may not have had a response doesn't mean it's a no.
So Kerri, what has been your journey in exploring Aboriginality within yourself and your family?
Yep, I always knew I was Aboriginal, but didn't know where I belonged in any of that. And I think when I was about 17 or 18, I asked my dad, who our mob was, and he said something, and it didn't even sound like an Aboriginal mob. It was really bizarre because my dad hadn't had much to do, or he didn't absorb the knowledge when it was being shared in his family. And I moved towns and with another Aboriginal family, and they went, well, yeah, we're actually connected to you via this. And they showed me the family tree, and they said, well, we're on this side and you're on that side. And something inside me healed. And I went, I belong somewhere. And then just started asking them questions, started connecting in with other family members that I hadn't known for a long time, talking to other people in the community who had known my family, who had lived in the town where I moved to. So it was all having those conversations and building those relationships with people. I went to uni to become a primary school teacher, and kind of did a lot of research as part of that, and just went, yep, I need to connect and I need to find out more. And since then, I've been like a bit of a bowerbird, just collecting. And, one of the traditional owner groups has now become a registered Aboriginal party. So we're learning a lot when, as mob, we all come together. My family is not just my little, nuclear family anymore. It's acknowledging all the elders and the past as well, and the ancestors they've descended from.
You talked about doing some study at uni. Just go back to primary school. How much Indigenous history or knowledge were you taught at school?
None that I can remember. Yeah. I can't even remember there was never an acknowledgement to country.
Yeah.
There was no such recognition as Reconciliation Week or NAIDOC Week or anything like that. So, yeah, I cannot remember anything being done about the Aboriginal people. It wasn't until I got to high school, and I think it was in year 10, that we did Australian studies, and it was all about Captain Cook coming over and blah, 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 and that all the Aboriginal people in Victoria died, or moved away. And the kid sitting next to me, he knew I was Aboriginal, and he just looked at me and said, well, how come you're here then? And you just kind of go, okay. So I think that's what drives me to do the job that I do, to change the story.
Learning about the true history, though, has it always been easy to hear?
No, definitely not. But confronting those things, for me, is a bit of a healing thing. I need to know some of the really nasty stuff that has happened in my family, and to know that my ancestor was put on a reserve to keep her safe, and then that reserve shut down, so she was put on a mission, and then that mission, they were moved around all over the country, but the fight that was in those ancestors now runs through, the blood from them runs through my veins. So I'm going to continue their fight, and I hope that my children continue that fight after me.
Question, do you have any First Nations idols that you look up to?
Yeah. I think Kathy Freeman is probably one straight off the top of my head, her going against the grain, and, whenever she won the Commonwealth gold or the Olympic gold, and carrying the Aboriginal flag around to highlight it, that, that Australia is not just, the English heritage, it is us as well. Michael Long is, I've always been an Essendon fan, and for him to call out racism when it was happening, and now that he does the long walk every single year, we always go down, we watch the Dreamtime at the G, and that's kind of all stemmed from, the incident at the football, and him needing to get that message of change out there. Yeah, plenty more. Like, I've just finished reading Eddie Betts' book, and that's just blew me away as well.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. And to think that we're aware of some of the racist stuff that happened to him, but there was a lot more that was in the background that we didn't know about. We're all different, yet we all go through some of the same stuff. And I guess my great grandmother and my grandmother, to know that, you know, my great-great-grandmother stood up at the inquiry to the Coranderrk mission, and in a time where, you know, women didn't have a voice, but her being an Aboriginal woman and sharing her story, that is absolutely huge. And every other woman that has come since then, you know, a lot of my aunts I held dearly, you know, because they're the ones that hold the knowledge for me now. So, yeah.
And learning about that history is part of your journey as well, isn't it?
It is. It is. To know the fights that they went through. You know, my great-great-grandfather and great-great-grandmother, they helped set up the Aborigines Advancement League. You know, to know that they did that was amazing. So, yeah, it is part of who I am now.
Do you feel like going back to that year guy, that kid who sat next to you in year 10 that said, "What are you doing here? You've all been outbred." And
look, he was probably the only one in the classroom that knew at that stage that I was Aboriginal and that I was a proud Aboriginal. For him to just ask me that question blew me away, whereas no one else kind of really mattered. You know, he did say it in a jestful way and it was never meant to hurt me. But I reflect on that going, well, yeah, we are still around. We were still around. We are still around. You know, it was, yeah.
What tips and strategies would you offer early childhood educators who may have no idea even where to start on their personal journey about understanding Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander history?
Ask. Find out if there is, as like KESOs are Victorian based. So one, if their service is in Victoria, reach out to the Department of Education and ask for KESOs. If there are Aboriginal education groups in your areas for the rest of Australia, ask them. That's our role, is to help early childhood services in embedding perspectives, reaching out to the right people at the right time. And it may take time. Not everyone is wanting to walk into services. Not everyone feels confident about talking about their own Aboriginality or their own backgrounds. So it is going to take time. Linking into other groups, other early childhood services that may already be on that journey themselves. Set up a Facebook group and talk to each other. There are places available if you need to.
So, Kerri, have you had any experience working with reconciliation action plans in any organisation?
Quite a few. This is probably the longest involvement I've had. Normally, I kind of put people on the tracks and point them in the right direction, and they then do it themselves with me kind of sitting in the background. But it's been a fantastic journey with AGECS doing their RAP and being involved. You know, they've come such a long way and it's been amazing to be part of it. I'm constantly being asked to be part of RAP groups. So that's nice that people feel that I can be asked and can point them in the right direction. And yeah, it's a good feeling that people feel that they can come to me and ask those questions.
When early childhood services are setting up a RAP, what are some things they should do or should not do?
I think first and foremost, get onto the Narragansett website. I know that's a big word and people trip over it and get it wrong, but it's all good. Ask community if they want to be involved. But yeah,
If a early childhood service wanted to engage with Aboriginal elders or Aboriginal community members, where should they go, or what are some do's and don'ts they should be aware of?
Having conversations with Aboriginal people can sometimes be confusing, in that our people sitting around the table may nod that yes, it's, you know, and people interpret that as yes, they're giving us permission, yes, we're doing that. But sometimes that yes means I've heard you It's not actually, yes, I agree with everything. It's giving Aboriginal people that thinking time. So reaching out to the elders or Aboriginal people and just seeing if they want to be involved, asking them, is this okay? Don't speak on their behalf, I think is a huge learning thing for any reconciliation group. Is, yes, your heart is in the right place when you're doing a RAP, but this is not a journey just for you as white people. It's a journey for everyone together. And really listen to that Aboriginal voice and just understand that we are not a hive mind. We don't all think the same. We don't all speak the same. And that you will maybe get differences of opinion when it comes to doing the RAP, but taking all of those advices on board. What things don't work is going through the whole RAP process and then having that RAP sit on a shelf and collect dust. It's a working document. Keep working through it. Give yourself time to go through it properly. Just because you may start off as a reflect RAP doesn't necessarily mean that after your 12 months that you have to go straight on to innovate. Give yourself time. If you're not reaching all the goals that you set out to do in reflect, continue on with the reflect. Yeah. Get it right the first time round. Do it well.
Yeah. Hey, so Kerri, when organisations are engaging with Aboriginal people, what protocols should they follow?
Reaching out and making sure you've got the right people around the table. And please understand that as Aboriginal people, we give a lot of our cultural knowledge, and it would be wonderful for them to be compensated for that knowledge and the time that they're giving up to be part of the reconciliation group, working group that you're undertaking to be part of the RAP.
Yeah. Why is it so important for early childhood services to actually have a RAP?
I think once early childhood gets it right, the children are then going home to their families and on to primary school, on to secondary school. And this might be the first generation that we're going to have that get it right all the way through. We need to change the history. And I think having a RAP in support of all the knowledge that services are providing the students means that we are teaching the best generation ever to change that history, to, you know, the pre-colonial history as well as what is happening now. I'm excited by the prospect of it.
I really like that. If we get it right now, as they get older, they're going to have that different thought process. They're going to have that understanding.
I would love to see that racism aspect of it abolished, gone. You know, it's like I said, it's an exciting prospect to see that, you know, I've heard of some children going home and before parents start eating a meal, they've stopped their parents. Oh, no, we have to do the thing first. And they've conducted an acknowledgement to country sitting at the dinner table of a night time, you know, instead of saying grace, because they believe this is something special. This is what we need to do before we do, you know, have our meal. And that at least then starts that conversation around the dinner table as to, well, what's going on and what are you learning? And, you know, changing the way families see Aboriginal people. And it's not just that deficit model. It's not just all the bad things that have happened to us. It's going forward in a really positive way.
Just before we do go, what would you want early educators to get out of what we've been talking about tonight?
I want them to have a go, to not be afraid to start somewhere. There's a saying out there that every journey starts with a single step. We want you to take that first step on your journey. Have a go. It's okay to get it wrong. There are people out there who will support you.
Well, thanks, Kerri, for joining us tonight and sharing your thoughts with us. I also want to take the opportunity while I'm with you, but online as well, to publicly thank you for what you have done with AGECS over the last 3 years. It hasn't been an easy journey at times. It has been challenging for everyone, but I want to say thank you for all your support. For people
Thank you.
who don't know, you are stepping down from the RAP committee basically at their next meeting. So again, thank you very much. And thank you, Kerri, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, AJ. It's been an amazing journey, and I love, you know, the early conversations that you had on with me about this whole project and the RAP journey that we were going on. And it's been fantastic to see that the learning process hasn't been easy, but it's been great that the whole group have taken on our advice as Aboriginal people, and they're quite happy to admit if they get it wrong and learn from that mistake, and let's move on together. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Good night.